Terence Crawford totally dominated Errol Spence. From the second round to the stoppage, it was pure domination. And I'm going to give you the big reason why. The reason why Terence Crawford dominated Errol Spence was timing. Terence Crawford's timing. Now, boxing is the manipulation of distance and timing to control the fight. Again, boxing is the manipulation of distance and timing to control the fight. You manipulate distance and timing to attack your opponent. You manipulate distance and timing to defend. You manipulate distance and timing to control the fight. Terence Crawford used his timing masterfully. Again, the biggest reason why Terence Crawford won this fight is because of his great sense of timing. Sometimes timing is hard to explain in boxing. Great counter punchers have a great sense of timing. A fast fight, you want to be the fastest fighter in the ring, but I don't care how fast you are. If I could time you, it doesn't matter. So, and Errol Spence isn't particularly fast. He's just relentless. He's just relentless with his pressure. And that relentlessness with his pressures actually worked against him. Terence Crawford used Errol Spence's greatest strength and flipped it. Terence Crawford took Errol Spence's greatest strength and used it against him. Errol Spence is relentless with his pressure and with his jab. But one thing Errol Spence did not do, at least in this fight, he didn't change his rhythm at all. Rhythm is very important in boxing. You create rhythm to break rhythm. Boxing is the manipulation of distance and timing to control the fight. How do I get my opponent's timing? Because I pick up his rhythm. So a good boxing breaks rhythm. Unfortunately for Errol Spence, he never broke his rhythm. He never changed up his rhythm. So Terence Crawford was able to time him easily. Also, Errol Spence never really changed his head slot. Errol Spence's head stayed in the same plane as he attacked. One, Errol Spence never changed his rhythm to break Terence Crawford's timing. Two, Errol Spence, when he attacked, he kept his head in the same line. Errol Spence, when he attacked, his head started on one plane and it remained on that same plane. Errol Spence's relentlessness and power and pressure generally overwhelms most opponents, but Terence Crawford is special. First of all, he's an uber athlete, so he had the physicality to stand up to Errol Spence. Errol Spence, he's predictable. He's going to spaz out that jab. He's just going to spaz out that jab. And if you can't hold up to it, he's going to overwhelm you. But it's Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford is a different beast. He's a great athlete. He's strong in his own right. From the beginning of his attack to the end of his attack, Errol Spence's head stayed on the same head slot, or it traveled in the same plane. So Terence Crawford easily was able to catch Spence coming in with intercepting fists. In the beginning, it was his lead hand that he called him with, his lead right hand. As the fight progressed, Crawford just got more confident because he was totally able to read Spence's rhythm. You got to set up your punches. Errol Spence was very predictable, and he set it up with a jab, double jab, and just try to come in with his power. But he kept his head on the same plane, on the same slot from the beginning of his attack to the end of his attack. And Terence Crawford was able to catch him coming in easily. First with his lead hand, and as the fight progressed, he was able to catch him with his rear hand. Anytime Spence attacked, Terence Crawford had a read. He'd either step back, use his footwork to defend. He would see the punches coming and unblock, or he would counterpunch and hurt Spence. He was leading, he was throwing his own punches, and he was drawing out Spence's punches so he could counter Spence's punches. So he would throw his combinations, and then he would draw out Spence's punches, and he was able to counter. It got to a point where Crawford no longer even had to draw out Errol Spence's punches to counterpunch him. Crawford was so dominant and started just totally dominating that Crawford was just leading. He was just going in for the attack. Spence was hurt. He was flailing, And a lot of his punches was just, fairly ineffective. Crawford would just walk Spence down with no fear at all. First, if Spence decided to attack, Crawford could easily counter or defend. And if he doesn't attack, Crawford would just pick Spence apart. It was domination. Errol Spence had the same rhythm. He never challenged Crawford's timing. He never, it was too easy for Crawford. He never changed up his rhythm. He didn't feint. He didn't change his head slot. He didn't try to hide his attack by using his head movement to possibly camouflage his attacks. Terence Crawford has a great sense of timing. Second reason is Errol Spence never changed his rhythm. Not only that, Errol Spence never changed his head slot as he attacked. His head was on the same plane from the start of his attack to the end of his attack. And it just made it too easy for Terence Crawford to counterpunch. Just too easy. Terence Crawford is strong. Usually Errol Spence is the stronger man in the ring. This time he had somebody equally as strong, but probably even a better athlete. It was just total domination. It was an amazing fight. Would I really want to see a rematch? Would a rematch be any different? I don't think a rematch would be too much of a difference. I mean, do you work on feigning? There was no plan B. Of course, Errol Spence never needed a plan B. He never had to rely on a plan B. Can Errol Spence fight Terence Crawford any different? Errol Spence was Errol Spence. I mean, he came out fighting behind his jab, tried to apply pressure, and tried to bully Terence Crawford. As an offensive guy, if you're fighting a real good counterpuncher or any good fighter, your job is to disrupt your opponent's timing so you can safely land punches. At the basic level, boxing is the manipulation of distance and timing to safely land punches. Well, how do you safely land punches? You must disrupt your opponent's timing. And Terence Crawford's timing is impeccable. Errol Spence did nothing to disrupt Terence Crawford's timing. Not only that, to make matters worse, Errol Spence never changed his head slots from the beginning of his attack to the end of his attack. So Terence Crawford easily was able to intercept, I call it intercepting fist, but he was easily able to find Errol Spence's head every time he attacked when he wanted to counterpunch, easily, because it traveled along the same plane. Again, it was in the same plane from the beginning of the attack, and it was on the same plane at the end of the attack. So Terence Crawford was easily able to intercept Errol Spence, just find his head. First, it was with his lead right, and then he so thoroughly had Errol Spence's timing and rhythm that he was finding Errol Spence's head with both hands. He was catching him with them left hooks and the lead right hands. It was just domination. It was just total domination. Terence Crawford footwork played a major role in that it nullified Errol Spence's body attack. Terence Crawford was able to move smartly. It was just subtle footwork. A step back here, a side step there. The footwork was sublime. Terence Crawford footwork was perfect. Terence Crawford dominated this fight because of his really good footwork that was subtle, not flashy, which nullified Errol Spence's body attack. Errol Spence is known for his pressure, and Terence Crawford used his pressure against him. And that's just a total mastery of boxing. It was just a masterclass. Now, Errol Spence helped Terence Crawford in that Errol Spence never changed his head slot. Errol Spence kept his head on the same path or the same plane in the same head slot from the beginning of his attack to the end of his attack. And it just made it easy for Errol Spence to find him and catch him with counter punches and drop him and eventually stop him. Like I said, it's a masterclass. Errol Spence never disrupted Terence Crawford's timing. Not at all. Not a little bit. And Terence Crawford just picked Errol Spence apart. So thank you for joining me. And please like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon Please leave your thoughts in the comments. This is Coach K of Zachary Carter TV. Thank you.